Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about movies that maybe we've never seen, maybe we should have seen them, but we've just not gotten around to it. It's kind of one of those conversations a lot of cinephiles like to avoid just because, it makes them look less learned or whatever. But I don't know, I just think it's interesting to kind of look at why people haven't seen certain films that are quite famous. Whether it has to do with hype or maybe it just doesn't seem like your kind of movie, I want to know why. But before we get into that, I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist and I do commission portraits. I also sell prints of my work. And if that is something that you are interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Well, we'll start with the first one, Lawrence of Arabia. For the simple reason that I'm saving it for a theater experience. I'd love to see it for the first time in 70mm and with an intermission. It sounds like the kind of film I'd immediately fall in love with, and I don't want to wreck that initial experience by falling victim to distractions and poor visual sound quality at home. Well, as somebody who loves Lawrence of Arabia and has seen it many, many times, I can understand why you're saying that. I have seen Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen, and it is phenomenal. It is absolutely a phenomenal experience. And I do think when it comes to like big Hollywood movies, this is one of the better ones to see on the big screen. Kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm glad I saw that on the big screen. There are several films, like big classic films of the Hollywood era, of the golden age of Hollywood, that are just movies that you should see if you can seek them out. And Lawrence of Arabia, try to see it on the biggest screen that you can because, obviously so much of the composition is so dependent on those amazing landscapes. The mirage-y tendency and just seeing kind of a speck at the very, very end of the frame getting closer and closer, those sorts of things just obviously they look better on a bigger screen. And the ambition of these sequences is something that, deserves to be seen in all of its glory. The first time that I saw the film, I honestly was kind of dreading it because I saw it as one of those, I think I was like 17 or something. I was in high school and I was kind of like, this seems like one of those boring Hollywood epics. But those haunting images in it, the cinematic images, always stuck with me, and I knew I had to revisit it. And I did, obviously, and eventually did make it to the theatrical experience. And so, I totally think it's a good idea for you to do that. But I would say also, don't wait too long. If you can't get to a movie theater anytime soon and you do want to watch it, if you can just see it on a really, really big screen in like a really, really good quality version, whether it's like, Blu-ray, whatever, 4K version, that would work as well, I think. Apocalypse Now, too intimidating. I'm afraid I might watch it wrong, if that makes any sense. And yes, I totally know what you're saying because I get that all the time because, I like to watch films that are, maybe a little bit more challenging, a little bit more esoteric, maybe not the most accessible sort of thing. And sometimes, I try to get other people to watch those kinds of movies who maybe aren't that used to that sort of thing. And, they're always very skeptical and very afraid. They feel like maybe they're not smart enough to get it because they're used to a certain type of film. And I get it because I've totally been there, especially when I was a teenager and I really wanted to get into film. And I was very, afraid if I would watch a classic that I wouldn't understand it. But it's like, I think that is completely the wrong approach, and I completely approach things differently now. I think you just got to go into it and not think about that at all. I think a lot of people go into a movie wondering, okay, what is this trying to say? Myself included. That's a very important thing for myself, but more importantly, it's how does this make me feel? How am I responding to it? That is absolutely the most important thing. So start with that. You're watching a film that's maybe a little strange, a little different, whatever. It's like, well, what are the colors making you feel? What is the music making you feel? Does it make you feel uneasy? Do you feel happy? Is it complicated? Just start there. And, from there, you'll be surprised at what you can arrive at. And as far as Apocalypse Now is concerned, that's one of those films where, it is a little bit tricky. It's a tricky film to understand for sure. But it's an extremely powerful film. And I think, it's complicated. I don't think it necessarily always works. And I don't think it necessarily always has to be understood. I love the feeling of the movie because you just kind of go with it. It's very much a let go type of thing. Kind of turn off those inhibitions as you're watching it, because that is what I take away from the film personally. Heat. It exceeded all of my expectations. The film was way more subtle than I expected, albeit Al Pacino's great-ass scene. And the film had some of the best character interactions I've ever seen in a crime drama, specifically the diner scene. Yeah, that's a film, I get why it might be one of those that you put off because all the elements in it, maybe not all the elements, but a lot of the elements in it are very kind of like historical Hollywood movie. You know, it's like you've got Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and it's like this role, like this heist type movie, which is kind of very much a classical sort of thing. It's got like noir elements in it. It's a crime movie, and it's heavily dependent on the acting and heavily dependent on, you know, like the way the sequence is built and all that. It's very much like a classic American movie. And I do notice it's like if it has Robert De Niro or Al Pacino, you know, some people might go, it might be a little too serious for me for this moment. I want to watch something lighter. And yeah, you know, like I understand where that comes from. I think I might have been in the same boat. I'm trying to remember. It took me a while to get around to seeing Heat myself, but yeah, I'm glad I did. It does deliver in all of the ways that you're saying here. Citizen Kane, because it was spoiled for me when I was young. Then, as I heard so many times how awesome it is and read and watched many analyses of it, I thought, what's the point of seeing it now? Having said that, I do intend to watch it soon, even though I won't be surprised. I expect I will not be disappointed. Yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of those old movies is they get spoiled for you. That honestly, like when I watched Psycho, unfortunately, I had seen the shower scene so many times, and thankfully I didn't know when it was going to take place. I always assumed it was going to be in the third act, but no, obviously it's not. Spoiler alert. But I don't care. I wish I had never seen it. I wish I knew nothing about it. It would have made the experience so much better, and it would have felt, you know, much more immersive. And that is the problem with these movies. It's just they're analyzed to death, and you know, obviously eventually, especially if you're a cinephile, you're going to catch on to a lot of that. There are, you know, like I watched Office Space for the first time and I had never seen it before, but yet I had seen so many clips in it from it and I had seen so many references. It's just, I practically had it memorized while I was watching it. And yeah, there is, you know, naturally there's just something a little bit unsatisfying about that. And Citizen Kane has probably been analyzed more than any American movie in the world, quite honestly. And so it's like, it's near impossible not to know. And as far as the Rosebud thing, yeah, that was spoiled for me instantly. I think that might have been the first thing I ever knew about Citizen Kane was, you know, about Rosebud. But, you know, the good thing about really great movies is that, you know, obviously a lot of them aren't necessarily dependent on the big twist. So naturally it's great for repeated viewings and it doesn't need that shock value. But at the same time, I think it's very important to the initial experience. But I will say Citizen Kane is one of those movies where, at least for me, I notice when I show it to certain people, they think, yeah, it did feel like, you know, I had to do a homework assignment. Some people do find it a little bit boring. And yeah, quite frankly, I can understand that just because it is like a standard kind of biopic. It has a lot of those kind of old elements, but you know, they're done in a new way. Though today it doesn't seem that new because Citizen Kane has influenced so many things. So yeah, when you're watching it, there is just a removed quality. And I almost feel like, obviously I didn't know Orson Welles, but I think he would probably maybe agree with that. I don't know. I think he's prouder of a lot of his later films, a lot of the experiments he did there, and I personally agree with him. The more important a movie becomes, the more you feel like, I don't know. It feels like something that I feel I should watch rather than something I'm compelled to watch. And naturally, you want to watch things that you're compelled to watch. So totally get it. And it seems the same as with this next person, Tokyo Story. It's been on my watch list for years. I'm afraid it'll either bore me or break me. That's such a great way to put it. If it's Ozu, it might do a combination of the two. You might be bored while you're also getting heartbroken, which is a really, really interesting thing. Yeah, you know, it really depends on the person. Some people do, you know, really struggle with those really long, really kind of quiet sequences. If you're into certain Japanese directors and even just like anime, you know, stuff like Miyazaki, there is a quiet quality to it, a very kind of painterly look and everything. Everything's very peaceful and, you know, everything really breathes and takes its time. You know, if that kind of quality appeals to you, then Tokyo Story will really work for you. Because, yeah, a lot of the saddest moments are the most quiet moments. But I also think if it does bore you, that's okay. It's like, who said that you have to love something just because everybody else seems to love it or because it's been critically acclaimed, whatever. I don't know. I don't really see a problem with just saying, you know, you really don't like something. I know for some that takes some bravery, but no, I actually find it interesting when people find something revered overrated or maybe underrated. It you know, sparks a discussion. I'll have to think of some confessions of movies I've never seen myself. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Over here, you will see my patrons who are fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for your support, and welcome to the new members. If you're interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.